Welcome to the Rainmaker Multiplier on Demand, a podcast for leading financial professionals, or rainmakers, and their teams that offer support for securing a successful future. From marketing help to staffing structure, listen and subscribe for actionable insights from advisors and skilled professionals alike.
Hello, I'm Kirsten, Vice President and Head of Annuity Sales here at C2P. We recently held our Women's Clarity Forum featuring some inspirational guests, and I'm so excited to share our conversation with you. First, we have Alanah Phillips, founder of Advisor Launch Lab and Break Up with Your Broker Dealer, who is a fierce advocate for transparency and innovation. Through her work with the American College of Financial Services Next Gen Advisory Task Force, she is making this industry more welcoming, vibrant, and forward-thinking for the next generation. We're also honored to have Lindsay Lewis, Managing Director and Chair of the Center for Women in Financial Services at the American College of Financial Services. Lindsay is a leader dedicated to advocacy and research, spearheading women working in wealth, supporting financial education through Savvy Ladies, and earning recognition in investment news 40 under 40. With A Woman's Clarity, we are dedicated to building a strong, supportive community that helps professionals reach their full potential. So let's dive in, hear from these amazing women as we discuss shaping the future for women in finance. I am excited that everyone is here. We originally were going to have a third person, Kellen Brown, who is the COO of 100 Women in Finance. And she is actually the connector for my relationship and opportunity that I got to meet both Alanah and Lindsay. So we're sorry that she's not here, but we're going to have a great time because if you've never had an opportunity to interact with Alanah or Lindsay, you're in for a treat. These two women inspire me daily. They are constantly on the forefront doing great things for advisors and females in the financial services. So welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
I'm always excited because you guys bring so much energy and joy to my day. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask a question for the two of you. What inspired you to devote your time into shaping the financial industry as a place to be more inclusive and open to women? I'm going to start with Lindsay.
I grew up in Utah in a small community where there weren't as many income-producing women outside of the home. I grew up in a household with 6 brothers and no sisters, and my mom ended up becoming the breadwinner in her household. I watched a number of women experience death, disability, and divorce in their life, and they were unable to navigate financial-based decisions moving forward. I ended up doing a CFP registered undergrad program, and there were 2 women that graduated in my graduating cohort. And I remember being in my income tax planning course, and I was the only woman in that course. And I know that women have great emotional intelligence, empathy, and great communication skills that are needed to be a financial professional. So that had always started with my inception within the industry. After finishing school, I worked at an RIA for a number of years, and I was the only female advisor at that firm, and ended up starting a women's event at my alma mater called Polish that helps young women and women who are interested in entrepreneurship, leadership, and finance find their path within the industry. So I'm deeply passionate around getting more women into the industry and getting them to stay. There's one thing about perhaps they make it in here, but how are firms and individuals themselves making this a career path for them? And so I had done that in my time, and I like to joke that I'm a recovering advisor as I've pivoted to help folks with partnering with the American College and their Center for Women, helping women through knowledge, applied research, and designation and degree programs. And Alanah and I have partnered together for a firm called Catalyst, where we help folks find the right fit for them as it relates to their firms. Deeply passionate about it and really look at the percentages of women when we look at designations as well as at firms. And we're still around the 20 to 25%, depending where you're at. And it really hasn't changed in 2 decades. And so what are novel solutions and ways that we can attract the rising generation and as well retain the generation that we have? So that was part of my inspiration and what brings me here today. And I'll pass the floor over to Alanah.
Yeah, I think Lindsay and I always have like interesting little things in our past that we find are commonalities. But my dad was a roofer. And so I thought I was going to grow up and be a roofing contractor was like my career path. And that's a very male dominated field as well. So it probably prepared me mentally and emotionally for this industry being so male skewed and dominated. I didn't pursue that career, which is probably best for my hair and my nails to be clean. But when I got into financial services, and my dad had always told me I was, smart and capable, and obviously thought that I could be a construction worker, apparently. But when I got into financial services, I was spoiled because I actually had a leadership team that was mostly women. And so I had really powerful, influential women who were a part of the beginning of my career here. I did have a woman, though, who said to me, it was maybe a year into being in the industry, and I was trying to make more money and progress in my career path. And she said to me, don't get ahead of yourself. And it's a thing I always come back to where I was like, what does that even mean? Should I be behind myself? How do you stay on pace with yourself? Isn't the whole thing that you want to be getting ahead of yourself? And that little moment in my career, that piece of advice that she gave me, I've taken and made it the fuel to do the opposite and make sure that I am getting ahead of myself, that I surround myself with people who also are doing that. And that's influenced this mission of, I especially want women in this industry to get ahead of themselves. I never want them to be holding themselves back or not thinking that they could do more or could be more. And as I have worked with women and used that fuel of how do we help you get ahead of yourself, I've watched them all make more money and have more fun and live in different cities and have babies and write books and open outside businesses that were things that they were really passionate about. And that's been so cool to get to feel like I'm some part of that in the stories of the different advisors that I've worked with in my career. And so I think that inspiration continues to feed upon itself of helping those folks to get ahead of themselves.
Wow. I can't imagine you in construction, just to be candid. That surprises me. I've never heard of that.
I can put your roof on. So if you need me to, I am capable.
Lindsay, I'm going to ask you the next question. One way women can feel more empowered in this industry is finding a mentor. How can they go about doing that, especially if they're new to the field? Because that can be really overwhelming. And if seasoned financial advisors are watching, how can they make themselves more open to mentoring?
Yeah, I like to look at mentoring a little bit differently, but also like to come with some statistics. So folks who have a mentor find themselves happier at work. 76% of individuals think having a mentor would help them professionally, while only 37% have them. Frequently, women are seeking mentors who are the same gender as them. And if you have a mentor, both you and the mentor have higher probabilities for higher income. So it is really important when we're thinking about making more money and having more fun that having a mentor is part of your plan for your workforce enhancement. A couple things that I think about mentorship differently. One is that I look at mentorship for a particular skill or activity that I'm trying to improve. So sometimes we look at mentorship as this big, long 2-year commitment, 90-minute meetings, all this stuff. And I've done it where perhaps there's a little skill that I need to enhance. Perhaps it's public speaking, perhaps it's a technology, perhaps it's how to build an executive presence or building a network or social capital. So then I find someone who's within my network or tangential network and say, hi, could you help me improve my executive presence? It would only be 3 one-hour meetings. I'll schedule them all and we can get that done. That is what I have found to be really helpful as a mentee. Also, it gives you an opportunity to test out the waters, right? Some formal mentorship programs are very long and perhaps not a good fit. And sometimes these quick little set mentorship that we find could flourish into a longer term mentorship program. That is one way that I have looked at mentorship. There are many great communities out there. One that I am connected with is the FinServe Foundation. They're always looking for great mentors. They have over 250, 300 mentees that want a mentor this year. Really important to volunteer time if that's something that you're looking at. Also, if you are in the role of mentor, I think what is also great is to think about what I call a reverse mentorship. Frequently, even a mentee could train you on something. So perhaps you are newer to a technology, or you don't understand TikTok, or you don't know how to build your presence on LinkedIn. So you could even have what I call reverse mentorship, where you seek out someone to help you with a specific item or task. But as the research shows, if I have a mentor or if I'm a mentee, higher probability for higher income and a happier workplace environment. So those are a couple tips that have helped me in my mentorship journey. I have done this specifically with folks within the industry. One example is Penny Phillips. She's an amazing person within the space. I was very particular about my executive presence, reached out to her and was like, what did you do? What was helpful? What was not? We did this for 4 meetings over the course period of a year. And then we have a nice, dear friendship now, and we both can go different ways. So that is how I look at mentorship, but it really does play a pivotal role for women within the industry.
I think that's one thing that's lost when we talk about mentor and mentee relationships. It's not just about the mentee. I have also learned so much from not only my mentor, but those I have mentored. There's things that I'm a little bit older, so I don't know, and they bring it to the light, and it gives me that aha moment and how I can leverage their skill set and talent in my own day-to-day. It's so amazing. My mentor back in the days, now this was a CFO at F&G. She's taken on a new role, but she even said to me that she learned from me. So it's a very symbiotic relationship. So thank you for sharing that. Now, Alanah, beyond mentorship, women working collaboratively is key to gaining a collective, better future. How can women advisors go about finding their community? Maybe they want to form their own with coworkers and friends, or how do we do that? I know that we've all had experience creating our squad.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think, a need to have the squad. And Lindsay and I, she frequently talks about playing this like a team sport as women in the industry. This is like an Instagram reel or whatever, but it's a high school basketball team, and they've gotten a basketball stuck like on the corner of the hoop and the board. And the boys all start throwing the basketballs and shoes and stuff to try to knock it down. And the cheerleaders come over and they get in their formation and they just pick a girl up and she pulls the basketball down from being stuck. So I think about just like us as women and the way that we operate within this space. I hope that it's like that. I think that we are naturally collaborative, or if we're willing to be, we can actually solve problems quicker, more effectively, more creatively. But to your question of how do you make that happen? How do you find that cheerleader squad that's going to help you get the basketball down? You do have to be out there. I think you have to be going to networking events. You have to be participating in groups of some sort within the industry. That could be within your firm. Most firms have a women's group now. There's obviously Cheryl Hickerson's on here, Females in Finance, WIFS, and finding your flavor that matches your vibe, I think, is important. And to that flavor or vibe, being authentically yourself, I think, is the key to finding that right tribe. Be your crazy little weird self and show up as you are. And if you do that, and I have proven this to myself, you do attract those other crazy little weirdos that think the same way that you do, and ultimately help you to maintain your sanity, to grow, to challenge yourself. And if you are trying to fit yourself into some particular box within a women's organization or within a group, or again, just not showing up as your authentic self, I think you miss out on so many of those really deeper connections with women who are enlightened and want to help each other to solve problems, grow. Again, we always come back to making more money and having more fun as a part of our mission, but you definitely have to show up authentically in order to attract that tribe.
Going back to authenticity, because it's so important that we are authentic to ourselves. Like, I am a coach for Soul Sisters, which is a running group here in Oregon. And I'll tell people I run fast some days, like a turtle and peanut butter, but we're in this together. We're going to start, we're going to finish, but we're in this together. So finding that network, and it might be multiple layers of network to give you that confidence to help you springboard your career, your networking, your growth, but it's out there. Like, I love all the different women I've had a chance to network with and meet, like Alanah. Linz, Kim, Cheryl. You guys have been an awesome tribe for me to learn from. So thank you for sharing that. Now, Lindsay, education is really a strong suit for you. So how is education a big step in helping form the future for women in financial services?
Yeah, it's so important. We just recently, the college came out with the designation outcome study. And this is by a third party group, and they have found, and I'm just going to read these for you. So individuals who have at least one designation have 13% higher growth in earnings and 35% higher growth in client retention. Now, if you add one more designation on there, you have 19% higher growth in earnings and 45% higher client retention. Sometimes it's difficult to see a correlation, but we're seeing actual monetary increases as well as more client retention from having a designation. Another one is that you are more likely to get a referral from a client. So for a female professional, if you have a designation, your 61% of them are going to get referrals to clients. Now, the other important thing about education is that it's a journey. And I always love to share, because I'm a big advocate and proponent for education, is that I've also had a little bit of bumps in my road. So I did a CFP registered undergrad program, and often you'll get a highlight reel from me. However, the first time 18 to 20 months for me to feel confident enough to retake the exam, I ultimately passed. But what I did in that process that was different between the first time where I did not pass to the second time where I did pass is that I actually had a coach in that process. So I worked with a gentleman that was in my MBA program, and he advocated that I find someone who had just recently passed within the last 6 to 12 months and asked for them to coach me in the process. So what I did in that is I found my dear friend, Jenny, who was absolutely incredible. She passed her 65, her 7, and her CFP all within an 8-week window. Yeah, badass for sure. So she was a great person to reach out to. And so I reached out to her and asked for all of the best tips and tricks as I approached my educational journey. So one thing I always like to know is, like, not always does it immediately end in a success, but it really is around that knowledge. And what's really important is to actually learn the information. I know for me during my undergrad was like, I just need to get an A in the class and like regurgitate for the time being. But when you're thinking about your clients and your expertise, actually learning the knowledge is so important. So those are a couple of things that are really important when we look at designations. And the last thing that I'll comment on is confidence. Oftentimes, confidence I feel like is nebulous and I'm not exactly sure what it is. But how I like to think about it is your ability to trust yourself. So as you have designations and the knowledge in your brain and that you can access, then you have a better ability to trust yourself with your clients and with your planning for them. So having a designation is really helpful in that regard. And sometimes it's really important to keep up with that. So one access tool, if you have had a designation from the American College, is that we actually have a Knowledge Hub Plus platform now. Consider it like your Disney Plus version of the American College, where you can get bite-sized courses on very specific topics. So I was looking at one, or I was just doing one recently around philanthropic giving. And it's so important to have that applied knowledge and to continue that moving forward. But yes, designations, higher earnings, higher client retention, and higher confidence, especially for women.
As a person that suffers severe test anxiety, to know that you did not pass on the first time gives me more hope, to be candid. So thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that, because I do suffer from high severe test anxiety, and I've been studying for the CFP at a very slow pace so I can understand and retain the information. So it's okay to fail, but you pick yourself up, and it's not really a failure, it's an opportunity to grow. So that's awesome that you should.
So you're going to get coached now.
Yes, I am. I just wrote that down. I don't know if you saw me doing that, but I wrote that down because I know one of my shortcomings is I take tests too fast. I get anxiety, then I don't do as well as I should. So thank you for making me better. Now, Alanah, I'm going to tee it back up to you. In terms of helping empower women through mentoring, coaching, education and our industry. What are some things you've done to better help women in this? I feel like we could probably talk all day about this topic, but what else have you done? Because you're doing this every day in and day out. I see your posts.
Yeah, I feel like this is a weird question because it's like, I don't like, I'm just showing up as myself is like part of the thing. And like, I say that is intentional, right? Is I've looked at myself as just like a brand and what matters to me, what I value. I am not afraid to be the first or the only. I will get up on stage and take a microphone. And that's like a weird thing. And it's not because I think that I have so many great things to say. It's because I know so many people are afraid to be that first or that only. And so sometimes I'm like, fine, like I'll do it, right? I'll be the first to volunteer for the thing because I'm very comfortable embarrassing myself, probably is like the reality of it. But I think like when you show up as yourself, this is one of the most powerful things that you can do for other women. Ben Nemtin, who's a speaker I've seen a few times, talked about this in his buried life concept of so many people wish and want for all these things in their life, right? Their bucket list of stuff, and they never go out and do it. It remains this buried life that they don't uncover. And so I had listened to him say that a long time ago and how that gives other people permission when you pursue the things that you really want to do or passionate about, excited about. It gives the other people who are in your sphere of influence or your network that same permission to do. And going back to just shouting out some of those women that Lindsay and I were talking about that I think have been good mentors or advocates, like Diana Cabrisi, Penny Phillips, who she mentioned, Dana Wilson, are all women that when I was thinking about starting my own business, were all younger, similar levels of experience that I was like, if Penny and Diana and Dana can do it, then obviously I can do it too. Like they've already set this stage here that it's okay for us women to break out of our corporate positions and go do entrepreneurial pursuits that align with how we want to influence this industry. And I have watched as they did that for me. There are now women coming behind me who call me for that advice. And I get to tell them I have no idea what I'm doing, but that's actually the whole thing. Nobody knew what they were doing, and we're doing the best that we can to try to make an impact. So I think being yourself, leading the way, and then hyping up the people behind you would be the last part of it, of, again, helping them to get ahead of themselves, making sure that you share the good, the bad, and the ugly about the process so that they know, again, none of us have it totally figured out. We are all doing the best that we can. We all suffer from some imposter syndrome. But when that mission is clear and we work hard towards it, I think we are making an impact there. So hyping them up along the way, I think, is also an important thing. I also think about, and this is a thing that connected Lindsay and I with a group of our ladies in the industry who share stuff with each other. We talked about how much money we made with each other. And that's like a very weird and taboo thing. But doing that has inspired other women to realize, oh, if Alanah's at this level or Lindsay's at this level, I can also get to that level because somebody has done it before me. And I think that is so powerful within this space, especially.
Transparency is a very strong tool.
Yeah.
Being able to help somebody see the forest for the trees as well as for the forest is a very important concept in this industry. And I always like to say, fear and faith take the same amount of energy. So why fear something because it's negative? Have the faith that the worst thing that could happen is a learning opportunity for you to grow. And if you succeed, what mountain did you climb? And you look back and you see all the things that you did and you reset your goals and you go forward. So important. And you're more than just Alanah. You are a phenom. You and Vince take this industry by storm, and together you're constantly pushing the boundaries and changing the narrative. And that's exactly why you're successful in what you do. So I'm just going to remove the word just from your vocabulary because you are Alanah.
Thanks. Sorry, can I say one more thing? Just as you're like talking about that, and thank you for in response, we have to do this to each other all the time of hyping each other up on those things. I think about how many women we talk to who don't want to make changes because they are loyal to something or because they're afraid of the risk associated with it. And how many times we have had to have conversations about, I don't know, they're not asking for more money. They're not asking for the next promotion that they want. They're not thinking big enough about what is possible for them. And so even just those conversations where we're saying those things to each other, no, you can do this. And the boys do it. The boys are asking for more money all the time, and they have less experience than you do. But for us to do that for each other, I think is really important. So thank you for doing that for me right now, because I think we all have to do that.
Absolutely. I read an article where men will walk into the room on their first day of work and say, I'm going to be the vice president in X years. And women stop and go, you're going to see me rise to vice president, but they don't express it. So ladies, if you're listening, stand up, step up and say, I want to be XYZ in X amount of years, because you can do it. Lindsay, same question back to you. If you want to piggyback on all that.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful topic. When you look at the research around women and their aspirations for advancement, it's very fascinating, because is it something that is a learned skill or something that is natural to them? And I think it's beautifully said by this group, but also I was in a meeting with Sally Krawcheck, and she mentioned, like, guys have been doing it as a team sport for so long, and that's what's made them successful. And women have been competing against each other. And she's like, the one place that we got it right was in high school, when we travel in packs and posses. And that's when we had the power. And so that is really why I prioritize, as well as Alanah and many women on here, I'm sure, is like the convening of women together, right? And our competition is not each other or the women in this room. Our competition is consumer spending out there, or some other product, or lifestyle, or time management, or something like that, right? So when you reframe it that Alanah's not my competition, though Alanah and I are very friendly, competitive between each other.
Oh yeah. To be clear, we are competing with each other, and we're aware of it, and we talk about it because we're enlightened women, and we're like, gosh darn it, where did you get that cute pink blazer? Because you're cuter than me on this webinar. It's a very healthy competition.
Very healthy. And we talk about it. Alanah made this in finance list, and I didn't. And I was like, dang it, next year I'm going to make that list too. But we have that ability to have that conversation and build that connection. One thing I also think about when like building your network within this industry, and I'm really a big proponent of building your village, so becoming a village architect in a modern world, is that you can connect with people virtually much easier perhaps than in person, and just connecting with them on LinkedIn and sending them a DM. Alanah and I met through a person at the college who introduced us, and now we're best friends and business partners, right? So like those little entry points. But the other thing I also like to think about is like your job and your role is only like one dimension of your life, right? And so looking to build your village beyond perhaps just your work environment, and you can test the waters in different areas of your life. So I have like my little 3x3 matrix, but these are the different categories of life that I also look to build networks and connections with. So from a spiritual aspect, financial, physical, occupational, social, intellectual, environmental, emotional, and fun. And I will send this to the team so that they can relay that to you. But really, where I have found myself within this industry is, as I've met more enlightened women and made that connection, is that it actually translates to other aspects of my life. And it's very interesting, because about 3 or 4 years ago when I met Alanah, I specifically told her, I'm not fun. I'm not a fun person. And now like we have that aspect of our life. And when you talk about becoming your authentic self, when I started out in this industry, I started out right out of college. So I'm 21 years old. I dyed my hair dark. I wore glasses, even though I didn't need prescription glasses. I wore specific colors and specific things. And I tried to conform to this, what I thought a financial professional looked like especially within my firm, being the only female advisor amongst a number of male advisors. And what I have found over the last half a decade and stepping into my 30s was that I can be myself, and I can show up in a bright pink outfit to this conference, and everyone's, wow, like what is going on here? But this is what I feel comfortable in, and this is how I want to present myself. So I think it's important when you are finding out, and if you want to wear, Navy suits or whatever, like that's also great too, but it's just being able to be comfortable in your own skin. And there's this amazing book called Validation is for Parking, right? Like confidence is really like something that comes from your internal aspect. And we've talked about imposter syndrome, and I actually used to bring it up quite a bit on the podcast that I hosted. And then I watched Reshma Shujami's graduation commencement speech. I'll also send this to you because it will be your homework assignment. But she says, like, imposter syndrome doesn't exist. It only exists if we allow it to. And when we look at the statistics around men when they are applying for specific jobs, if they have 60 to 70% of the requirements, they're going to apply to a job, versus a woman will wait till she has 80 to 110% of the requirements to apply for the same job. So it really is that mentality and that mindset difference. I also recently saw a TikTok video around how men think that they could fly an airplane if an emergency happens. If you walk into that cockpit, you're like, I have no idea what any of these levers are. It's just like that overconfidence might be a bad thing in like flying an airplane, but has paid a lot of dividends for them when it relates to being in arenas within financial services. The last thing I'll add here is just really finding a really great male ally and advocate. So there are many rooms, especially even last year, that conferences or events that Alanah and I would not have been invited to or been able to participate in without a great male ally. Now, one way that I've done this is that I found someone who is within my organization. So this is one where it's tricky, where like sometimes you want allies or mentors who are outside of your organization. For a great male ally, I recommend having it within your organization, right? And you'll just say, hey, Todd, could I spend an hour with you once a month? I'm trying to learn a little bit more about this, and really build that rapport. Because what happens is that frequently women are seeking to have mentors or advocates who are like the same gender as them. But if I'm the only female professional within my firm and I have a mentor who is over here, they are unable to advocate for me within my firm, right? So if you find a great male ally within your firm, then they're able to what I call sponsor you and advocate for you when you're not there. And there's like little ways, and it depends how much rapport you have with them, but I'm sure everyone has been in a meeting where you shared an idea, and then 10 minutes later, a man shares the exact same idea, and they're like, cool. And then it gets traction. So if that person could be like, oh, didn't Alanah say this or Kirsten say this, and just helping you advance too. I have found that despite like the negative press of this industry, I have found a lot of really empowered, enlightened men who are willing to help women advance. And sometimes it's just making the ask. So those are a couple of my thoughts as it relates to advancing women in the industry.
Thank you for teeing up the positive male support that we get in this industry. So I do want to take a quick minute to thank all the men from C2P who joined us today. And Matt Seitz, our Chief Marketing Officer, he's on here today. He's been an ally, an advocate, and a great supporter. So thank you, Matt, for supporting women's clarity and all the ladies of C2P and in the industry. So I want to take that minute to thank our positive male support. Now, Alanah, we are coming close to ending our time together. So I have one more question for you. What programs or initiatives would you recommend to women looking to either network, mentor, or if they're even thinking about getting in the industry and they're timid because they hear it's only 20 to 25% women?
Is it like the women that we talk to when we go out, and Linz participates in this too. I started this in 2016 or 17 called Project Inspire, where we go talk to young women at the college level, and we show up in our hot pink blazers and our sparkle dresses and all that. Like, we're really fun, right? This is a fun industry. I want young women to see that this is a place that they can thrive too, because I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity in that. When we do show up to events authentically as ourselves, we're very memorable because there's only a couple of us in the room. And especially if you're wearing a hot pink blazer, like, people are going to remember you. And that's one of the biggest battles in finding clients or growing your business or getting a connection that you want to someone, is that being memorable piece of things, right? I think that's one piece. Like, it is unfortunate, but I also think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity because there are so few women when I hear that. In terms of programs or initiatives, there's so many things. The American College, obviously, Lindsay is the executive director for their Women's Center. That's a fabulous group. We have a Next Gen task force that is designed to attract younger folks to the industry, which I think is our answer to diversity in general, just getting a different looking financial services industry. We've already mentioned Females in Finance, WIFS. There's a Female Advisor Network. Jessica Weaver has a fabulous group of women. any of the firms that you participate in or might join typically have women's groups. I don't think any of them are the best or the most or the right one. It's just a matter of, I think, finding the flavor and vibe that matches what you're looking for. They're all going to have a little bit different culture that way. And so making sure that you test out a few of them. I know I went to every possible industry event, and shout out to my male advocates in my career. Ryan McCloskey, who was one of my first bosses, was like, go to every conference you can, we'll pay for it. And I went to every networking, FPA, NAFA, WIFS, NAPFA, all the stuff, and found the ones where I thought that I belonged, and found people who were, again, the crazy little weirdos like me that I wanted to hang out with. And that was so critical just in terms of expanding my network of folks as well, and continuing to find people that are pushing me forward, helping me to get ahead of myself, and vice versa.
We are wrapping up our time, but since we have International Women's Day on Saturday, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. What are we going to do to celebrate our wins? What are we going to do to celebrate us? Lindsay, what positive changes have you seen in the industry, and what progress do you hope to be celebrating in the next few years because of all these fierce females?
Yeah, there have been a number of really great strides. I would be remiss to acknowledge that like the executive orders that have gone through and some of the sentiments have been a little bit of headwinds for some folks. And so my 2 cents there is to just continue showing up. We have experienced headwinds like this in the past. And so it is important to stay connected and to continue moving forward. I really have this notion, we've heard the term, if you can see it, you can be it. And I really advocate for if you can see her, you can be her. So just making sure that you show up and you're still there. And it's all right to have a cathartic moment and to cry with others and express frustrations. Alanah has been a great listening ear for me recently, just given like all of the things that we're experiencing in the geopolitical environment. So making sure we show up. As it relates to the industry and the profession, like Alanah mentioned, if we look at the rising generation and this new emergence of financial professionals, so 100,000 financial advisors plan to retire in the next 10 years. That is 1/3 of the entire financial services profession. So we have such a beautiful opportunity for this rising generation to come into here. That doesn't necessarily always mean younger folks, right? We could look at parallel industries that would make a lot of sense for them to come into financial services, perhaps educators, realtors, healthcare workers that may want to pivot in here. So it really is, when you're thinking about your natural network and the people in your life, right? You might hear of someone who is working at a hospital, doesn't want to work there anymore, unsure what they could do, making recommendations perhaps to look at financial services as a career. Also, as we look at consumer spending and women stepping into wealth, this is going to be a female-dominated space as it relates to the amount of wealth. So how best can we attract great female clients, but also great female advisors moving forward? But I believe in full diversity here. So we need great male advisors as well as female advisors to have a full spectrum of diversity of thought. But on Saturday, I'm going to celebrate. I am a mom of 2 children and I have a daughter who is 3.5. So typically London, she is the vibe. And so it really is absolutely amazing to spend time with her. It was so funny last night. I was FaceTiming her and I'm on a work trip and my spouse is taking care of the kids at home. And she goes, "Mommies work, daddies don't." And I was like, okay. And my husband's like, "You gotta help with that narrative." I'm like, nope, we're going to keep with that narrative. It really is about inspiring that rising generation. And that's how I'm going to celebrate International Women's Day this year.
Fabulous, Lindsay. And you, Alanah, any words of advice that you received, and how are you going to celebrate women on Saturday?
Yeah, I continue to come back to, again, just the authenticity and perhaps some courage and audacity. There's a woman that Lindsay and I both know. She was at Future Proof with us, and we had our little crew of women that Lindsay had created this like headquarters for us in our room for everybody to come. And we had snacks and took pictures, and people could stop and take a break, and we're hyping each other up in our outfits and the whole thing. And one of the more experienced women who was with us, who's been in the business for a long time, had said something about how she wishes that she had the courage to do some of the things that we're doing. And again, I come back to this and say, I'm terrified. Like every time that I do some weird thing in the business, I am terrified if it's going to work or not. So it never feels like courage. But I thought it was such an interesting sentiment from her. And we had said to her, like, she paved the way for us to be this way, though. Like the things that she did in the industry, showing up the way that she did or navigating into these spaces and rooms has allowed us to show up in our tennis shoes and our pink blazers and have that still be a very professional way for us to show up and match our energy and our authentic selves. So I think I really want to make sure that the women who are experienced in the industry, when they see us being ridiculous, showing up in sparkle stuff, recognize we're not asking you to do these things, right? We're grateful that you paved the way that we have this freedom to authentically be ourselves. And I'm hopeful that means that this next generation will have even more of that space to show up authentically, because I really just think that's the key. Nobody wants to be sold anything anymore. They want to connect with the human being. They want to believe that you understand them, that they know and trust you, and then they want to buy from you. And that we're still, obviously, this is all business. And that is the key to unlock the business part of it. It's not the blue suits and sleazy sales tactics that may have worked in the past. We really have made, I think, a significant amount of progress there with social selling and all of that. So again, I just come back to, if you're not willing to be your authentic self, I think you will continue to find misalignment. But if you are, authenticity plus consistency is the key to everything.
Alanah, Lindsay, why does the time go so fast? I could listen and talk with you all day because you inspire me. Actually, all the ladies on here, the ladies of C2P, the other organizations that have joined us, and our male support system, you guys all inspire me. And I really appreciate you giving us your time, because together, we rise together as a group. So the female support, the male support, and everybody who's here. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for inspiring us. And whatever you do on Saturday, please remember to celebrate your authentic self, ladies, and our male support. Don't forget to celebrate the ladies in the industry and in your lives. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in. This podcast was brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Never miss an episode by subscribing now to discover new resources and strategies. Visit c2penterprises.com to learn how we can help scale and secure your business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable, but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.